If you would keep me waiting, I would wait a lifetime. In tricky situations, I will be a lifeline. Nobody's meant to be fighting alone. That's why I'm taking you home. I never felt something like this before, no.
Things seem to be looking up at this point. I know we started off the month of June okay, then things didn't go well in the commerce, but here we are in the WSOP. After busting a tournament today, we find ourselves in the King Lounge looking to mix things up. In this very first hand, we are playing four-handed. The button decides to raise at $35. We're in the big blind and we look down at ace-5 offsuit. This is a good hand to just call with. I feel like it's a better hand to 3-bet with. Why not use the aggression? I decided to 3-bet to $130. The villain decides to make the call, and we're going off to a flop that comes Jack 7-8 with 2 hearts and a spade. I decide to check this over to my opponent, as this board is definitely going to favor the 3-bet caller as opposed to the person that's 3-betting. Other thing is I'm out of position. It's pretty crappy to bloat a pot with no backdoor equity, so I make the check to take my showdown value. He checks it back fairly quickly, and we're going off to a turn card that comes the 8 of spades. At this point, I decide to bet for equity denial, as well as the opportunity that I can still get called by inferior holdings, king highs, random straight draws, as well as the off chance that my opponent can for some reason fold a hand like 5s, 6s, 3s, deuces, those kind of holdings. He ends up making the call, and we're going off to a river card that comes a 7 of diamonds. This is a really good card, as now I feel like all of his pairs are going to be counterfeited, and I chop with every other ace. I decided to check it over to my opponent, as though I don't think I can get called by king high, or maybe not frequently enough, but I feel like some of his random bluffs here are going to be looking to do just that. So I let him hang himself, or maybe just get owned myself. I check it over to him, but he pretty astutely decides to make the check back. I do show my hand, and I joke with him a little bit, saying that I would have called, most bets on the river, and he says that he knows because he watches the vlogs, and he did tell me that he folded or checked back, king high. So solid for him. Well, as you guys know, it's only right that in these, 5-10 and higher games that we get a little double poured PLO bomb pot action. Forgive me, I know some of these are a little annoying, but it usually makes for a pretty interesting hand, especially if I'm featuring it in the vlog. Stumbling over my words, forgive me. We are in this very interesting pot. $25. I think there's like 6 or 7 of us in this hand. Either way, we're going off to a flop that comes 10-7 deuce with 2 clubs and a spade on the top, and on the bottom it comes 9-9-3. We look down at our hand, and it takes me 2 takes before I realize I flopped a boat with 9-3. That's a pretty crappy hand, but I'm going to go ahead and bet here, as we also flop ourselves an open-ended straight draw on the top board. I make it $150 to go. Only the button decides to make the call. We're going off to a turn card that comes the queen of clubs on the top and the 8 of diamonds on the bottom. We don't add any more equity on the top board, and it's actually a little crappy because we can no longer have the nuts on the top board, but we do improve to a better boat on the bottom board. Not that it changes a whole lot. We still have what is effectively the nuts in this situation. I don't think we can lose to any hand on the bottom board. But our hand is vulnerable. There's still a better, chance that somebody could have ace-9 and we can get rivered or something like that. So I decided to bet the size of the pot once again, $450 to go. And once again, this opponent makes the call. We're going off to a river card that comes a 9 of hearts on the top and an ace of hearts on the bottoms. Not very good, as we no longer have the nuts, but can't be too scared. I end up checking it over to my opponent, who pretty quickly checks it back. And my opponent ends up showing what is top 2 pair on the top board, and he has nothing to play on the bottom board. So we end up chopping up that pot there. Kind of anticlimactic. I feel like I could have got him to fold if I really applied the pressure on the river. Either way, it is what it is. I can't fault myself for not knowing how to play the great game of PLO, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing in the game, period. Alrighty, so wrapping things up from that bomb pot there, we're going forward in what is a pretty exciting hand. I'm in the straddle for $20. Under the gun, decides to make it 60 bones. Only me in the straddle looks down at the 6-7 offsuit. We make the call, and we're going off to a flop that comes ace, ace, 6 with 2 diamonds. Check it over to the initial raiser. He makes it $100. We're going to go ahead and make the call here. Feel like folding is bad, so we're going off to a turn card that comes the 9 of clubs. Pretty interesting. When I check it over to my opponent, he snap checks it back. I think that makes sense. I feel like he should be checking most of his range. That doesn't include some polarizing bets at this point. So him checking back makes me feel like he has kings, queens, jacks, tens, those kind of holdings. So we're going off to a river card that comes a jack. Not my favorite card, and when I check it over my opponent, he does something interesting by deciding to bet $300. He's betting near the size of the pot, and that's what I think is fairly interesting. He's definitely polarized. Ace Jack and Pocket Jacks are the only really credible hands that I think I can give him here, and that's significantly less than the amount of hands that my opponent can have for bluffs. All the missed flush draws make sense, and even moreover, I feel like there's a small percent of a chance that my opponent can have maybe Jack 10 of diamonds and turn his hand into a bluff for whatever reason. But even then, I really don't know. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I do something that obviously in hindsight doesn't make much sense, but I go with it anyways in the moment. I decide to raise to $1,100, and my opponent pretty quickly decides to make the call. And the reason I don't like it is there's very few hands that bet that river that are bluffing that beat me. So I feel like raising doesn't make any sense. I think hero calling is just fine. Like, sure, I don't know. I don't think he's ever going to be betting King Jack for value on that run out, maybe. It's just hard to tell. It's not for that sizing. Either way, misplaying is not going to be something that is that we end up fading. That's going to happen quite a bit in the rest of this vlog. So just bear with me, buckle up, because this episode is a freaking rodeo. Moving right along, in this next hand, I find myself under the gun +1 with pocket ladies, pocket queens. This is a great situation for us as we have been fairly carded by this point. I decide to raise to $30, folds over to the big blind who decides to 3-bet to 140 bones. With the action back onto me, I think a 4-bet is definitely in order. I'm in position, which is great, and there's a lot of other things going for me, like the fact that I have a good hand. I decide to make it $350. Don't need to go too massive here. We are in position. There's no reason to go over 3x. Feels like a nice sizing. Make it the old 35 big blinds. My opponent decides to make the call. Now we're going off to a flop that comes 10-6-4 all hearts. Interesting flop. We do have ourselves a heart, which is kind of nice. With the action checked over to me, I decide to down bet here. $225 seems like a pretty reasonable bet. What I'm trying to do is target a holding like pocket jacks, obviously, pocket nines, ace king, ace queen, holdings that have 1 heart, maybe have them overplayed by jamming or something like that. It's really hard to tell. My opponent decides to check raise me to $650, and at this point there's only 2 questions. Do I go with the hand or do I fold? And I think considering I do have the queen of hearts and there is a chance that my opponent can be doing this with ace 10 with the ace of hearts, ace king with the ace of hearts, pretty much any ace of hearts X situation, I end up deciding to go with it. I end up making the jam for what is around 2K total. My opponent makes the call after a brief moment of thinking, and we're going off after agreeing to run out 2 boards to 2 boards. The first board comes out with a deuce of diamonds and then an ace of clubs on the river. Disgusting. That's not what we wanted to see. And then the second board comes out with an 8 of clubs and a 9 of spades. Luckily for us, we needed to run it 2 times as my opponent chose ace king with the ace of hearts. He never made his flush, but you know, he did end up hitting that little bink-a-rooney on the river there on the first board. Unlucky. It felt like we had a really good situation there, but you know, albeit my opponent had a ton of equity with 2 overs and a flush draw. Either way, you can't kill yourself over it. Seems like the cards are just not falling in my favor. Even when we're a slight favorite, it feels like we're a dog. Okay, things have not gone very well. We're in for a lot and don't have too much. I think we have like 3K in front of us. Let's see how we pull out of this. Should be exciting. Have about an hour left before we hit dinner with Aaron, so we'll see how it goes. Either way, let's hop back into the session and lock the fuck in, huh? Things are progressively getting worse for us. We're getting even more card dead, and the table's getting even tougher. My ego's definitely getting the best of me here. This is the point where you probably just rack up and call it a day, but that's never been my best suit. Although, granted, I'm getting better at it, just not today. I decide to open it up here as the straddle is onto $60 after looking down at Queen 10 offsuit from middle position. Only the straddler decides to make the call. Now we're going off to a flop that comes ace 6-4 with 2 diamonds. I decided to bet $50 as a continuation bet. I don't need to go massive here. There's already a flush draw out there. There are some straight draw opportunities, and these aces definitely going to favor my hand as opposed to his. He ends up pretty quickly making the call, and we're going off to a turn card that comes a queen of clubs. With the action checked over to me, we now have some showdown value, so I'm going to go ahead and check this back and play the merits of my holding. We're going off to a river card that comes in 9 of hearts. With the action on my opponent, he decides to lead here for $165. Another annoying spot for the day. It's just really annoying, and the reason being is that All the straight draws miss, all the flush draws miss, and I still feel like I just am never good here. My opponent can definitely be evaluating a weak ace here considering how the hand has went down, but man, it's just so obnoxious when I have a hand that I should be calling with, and this is that perfect instance. After a bit of thinking, I end up making the call, and my opponent does have it, as he had ace 4, so 2 pairs better than just 1 shitty pair, so, you know, tip my hat off to the gentleman. I do lose this pot, and we're moving on to the next hand. Forgive me as this next, hand doesn't have any video, but you'll just have to trust me. I've never made one of these up, so yeah, it is what it is. Just follow along with me. I'll do my best to recreate the situation. Late position decides to make it $30. I'm in the button, and I look down at ace king offsuit. Like I said, been waiting for this all day. The last time I played against his opponent, he had ace king, and I had pocket queens, and we chopped the pot. Looking to build the pot here. I make it $130 for the 3-bet. Folds back over to him, and he thinks about it for a brief moment before deciding to make the 4-bet. $350 to go. The action is back onto me. We're not even playing that deep, all things considered. Only like 200 big blinds deep. I mean, I guess it's super deep. What the hell am I talking about? I decide to 5-bet here to $1,000 even. At this point, I only have somewhere in the realm of $2,000 behind, and my opponent decides to make the 6-bet jam. It is pretty difficult to make a 6-bet jam, but in this case, my opponent does do so. I can't ever fold here, but it does feel like I'm getting freaking destroyed by pocket aces. Either way, we end up making the call, and unfortunately, we do get the bad news. We do agree to run the board out twice. The first board comes out king, jack, 9, rainbow. Turn is a 10, and the river comes a 3, so that does not help us in any way, shape, or form. The second board comes out jack high, and my opponent shows pocket aces. So, unfortunate for us. Good hand to you, sir. Looks like just things are not working out my way. If we're not playing bad, we're just getting it in bad somehow. And at this point, we stumble across another very interesting hand. The button decides to raise here to $30. I find myself once again, I want a 3-bet. We look down at ace 10 of hearts here from the blinds. I make it $130 to go. The button decides to 4-bet to $550. Not a great spot. He chose a very large sizing, but we do have a hand that we can consider peeling with, which is what I end up doing. We're playing somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,500 or 2,700 effective, and we're going off to a flop that is outstanding, 5-5-4 with 2 hearts. We end up picking up a massive draw here with 2 overs to the board. With the action checked over to our opponent, he decides to c-bet here for $450. After a brief moment of thinking, I feel like jamming just kind of makes sense. I don't think I can ever get better to fold, but maybe there's sometimes I can get ace king and ace queen to fold. I end up deciding to jam for 10k effective. My opponent goes into the tank forever until eventually deciding on a call. He asks how many times we want to run it. This is my last hand of the day. We've got dinner reservations at a location that we need to get to, so I say 1 time. Let's see if we can double up and try to break even. If not, then we'll just call it a day. The turn card comes the ace of diamonds, and my opponent quickly shows ace king with the king of hearts, which means we have even less equity. And the river card comes a queen of clubs. Absolutely no help for your boy. Today's session was the session from hell. Like I said, even when we got it in good, we were getting it in bad, and vice versa. Can't fault yourself for playing bad poker after playing a tournament and getting destroyed. The one thing you got to do is be able to realize when you played bad, take a step back and learn from it. And that's just what I'm going to do today. I played really shitty poker, and it's about being real to yourself, not hiding it from the vlogging, people of the vlog world. I was almost embarrassed to post this up, and I just realized that, hey, everybody has a bad session. Today was my version of a bad session. It sucked. I lost a lot. But if I don't show this, then who will? Not everybody likes showing the losses, or maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know, but I'm going to just keep it real with you guys. I played bad. I'm going to hold myself accountable. I know you guys are going to hold me accountable, and we're only going up from here. Let's start over me in person to see how the heck we feel after such a miserable session. Unfortunately for us, today just wasn't our day. As you guys saw, our aggressive moves didn't work out. We weren't playing the best we could have possibly played, but moreover, the cards just didn't fall in our favor. Either way, the things are as they are, and you've got to learn how to build and grow from your mistakes. Today, we found some, and we're going to work on them. I have nothing to worry about. This is a long World Series of poker. The last thing I want to do is beat myself up for a mistake I made on day 1. So let's get back into the lab and grow as poker players. We were into today's game for 7K and out for a grand total of $0. But I can promise you guys one thing: if you guys keep watching the series, I promise you there is so much more battling to come on. And again, thank you. Shout out to Mike. I have not done this properly. A massive shout out to Mike. Mike is the GOAT. He's the one that's been helping me edit the videos, and without his help, this whole thing is not possible. So shout out to him, and shout out to the lovely vloggers, supporters. You guys are a part of the C2B familia, the familia. You guys are the absolute shit. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful day. Stay happy, stay healthy. More importantly, y'all, run good at the table. Deuces.
That baby, I got you. No matter the distance, no matter the